Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And you can't talk about good stuff without Mr. Good Stuff. He's one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I am, I'm doing wonderfully well. I can't help but think about my father today. He was a World War II veteran, and he once was on a plane with Douglas MacArthur.
No.
Yeah.
Wow,
yep.
That's a story.
By the way, going to Alaska, of all places.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, you're gonna have to tell me more of that story at some point. Anyway, guys, listen, it is good to have you here today. We've got a number of things that we want to talk about here, about our favorite things in the world, a little bit of streaming, television, movies, all that sorts of good stuff as well. And we break this show into two parts. In the first half of the show, we talk about some setup topics. On the second half of the show, we take your live comments and questions. If you've got a live comment or question that you'd like to hear on the show, just go on to the tip link that's at the very top of the description of this video, or you can enter it in manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. Also, guys, want to encourage you, if you're new around here or if you haven't done so yet, why don't you take a second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on all the stuff that we've got going on here. All right, guys, look. Before we get into our main stuff, this is a little bit of a different off the top, but this has really excited me. So I just want to talk about it just for a second. I want to talk about this just for a second. So you guys know I'm a tech head, right? Like I love my gear. I love all this stuff. I've been waiting pretty anxiously for the new Mac computers that we're going to have, the new Mac Silicon. Now, for those of you who don't know or care about this stuff, just bear with me for a minute. But Apple, for the longest time, has been using Intel processors, just like regular PCs. They announced a while ago that they were going to be switching over to their own processors, just like they have their own processors in their iPhones and their iPads. I love my iPad Pro, man. I love my iPad Pro. And I've been very, very interested to see what is it going to be like for them to have an actual computer with their own silicon and their own processors. Well, yesterday they made this announcement about the new, first of all, they did a Mac Mini, a MacBook Air, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro. They'll introduce more later over the next year or so. But this new processor, they've replaced the Intel processors with these M1 processors that are 8-core processors that, Rob, they say are the fastest core processors on Earth. And they have, this is the part that excites me about this. They have the GPU, an 8-core GPU that's basically a video card built right into the processor chip. It's built right in.
Yep.
Now, when you're somebody like me, like I love to edit video on the go, and I love to edit video, when I'm mobile and stuff like that. And it's difficult to have a reasonably priced laptop that does that because, it's so slow. The graphics processing on most laptops are very slow. And that's why it's actually much faster. Dude, I use my iPad, and I can edit like 8 layers of 4K video on my iPad with an Apple processor in it, and it doesn't skip a beat. It doesn't miss a frame. Imagine a laptop with a built-in 8-core GPU, 8-core processor, fastest of the class, so they say, and uses like half the power. I mean, I just got to tell you, again, guys, please just indulge me because I am a tech head. I'm a gearhead. You have no idea the granite-like stiffness of my erection over the idea of what this processor can be and might be able to do. I'm very, very excited about it. But Rob, you had a chance to take a peek. You saw them talking about this new MacBook. Like, I'm very, very excited about this MacBook Pro. Did you have a chance? Like, you can legitimately now game on a laptop without a dedicated GPU. I mean, they're talking about 5 times the graphics. I don't know. You saw this because you're using a Mac right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, I've had a granite-like erection in my pants for 24 hours, and I didn't even take Viagra. No, I mean, look, I've been a Mac guy since I started using the original Macintoshes in '85, and I have always been a Mac guy. And I'm talking to you on a Mac right now, an iMac Pro, and I look at this stuff, and this is the kind of, you know what, to have something like that, to have a MacBook, a 13-inch MacBook Pro, you really can. I would love to see about how it works with editorial software, whether it's Premiere or Final Cut Pro or Avid. You could literally be sitting on a beach doing any kind of video editing. I mean, already you can, but with the kind of power this thing is boasting, in terms of creators on the go, this stuff is, I mean, this is next level, and it's pretty damn amazing. And I look at this, it makes me salivate for all the craziness that goes on in the world, John. You know what I say when I look at something like this? Power of science, man. The power of science. Don't ever forget, power of science will set you free.
It will be very, very interesting to see what these sorts of things are going to be capable of. And I'm just curious, guys, what do you think about that? Have you guys had a chance to see what these new Macs are going to be able to do? They're already available to order. They actually start shipping next week. People are going to get them pretty quick. I'm very excited about it. Could revolutionize like mobile content creation and all that kind of stuff. Again, I love what I'm able to do on my iPad. It'll be interesting to see what you can do on an actual laptop. What do you guys think about that? Jump on down into our comments section and let me know your thoughts there. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's actually get into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime, 24/7, whenever you come across a big topic or piece of news that you think we should discuss here on the show, go on over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1, shall we? And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Robbie Sumai. I think that's how you pronounce that. Robbie Sumai writes, "Hey, John and Rob. So news came out the other day that Pfizer announced, speaking of Viagra, that Pfizer announced that they had a potential vaccine that had a 90% effective rate. And we're talking about a vaccine for the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously, that had a 90% effective rate. On this news, stocks in movie theaters instantly shot up. I think Cinemark's stock jumped as much as 40%. Is this the good news that theaters and their investors have been needing? Will investors be more willing to hang in there with the theaters now?" All right. Thanks a lot for sending in that question, man. And yeah, I mean, look, first of all, obviously the news of a possible vaccine coming out from Pfizer or anybody else is obviously much bigger news than just how it relates to, you know, the movie world and movie theaters. But that's what we are here to talk about, is the movie world and movie theaters. This news came out, and you're right. Instantly, when this news came out, the stocks in theaters like AMC and Cinemark immediately surged upwards. In other words, the market saw this news as being potentially extremely good for the movie theater industry. How good? Well, I mean, according to who you're reading, a Business Insider at this point says AMC is up 80% as movie theater stocks surge after Pfizer says COVID-19 vaccine is effective. This comes to us from CNN. AMC stock spiked as much as 50% following an announcement of early data from the drug maker Pfizer. That is, coronavirus vaccine is more than 90% effective, which is far better than expected. The company shares were up a whopping 80% in pre-market trading right after the news broke. Cinemark, the third largest movie theater chain in the U.S., also got a major boost, which with its stocks rising more than 40% after the opening bell. All right. So there's a couple of interesting things here about this. Number one, obviously the bigger issues is, of course, we're talking about a possibility to something that could end the pandemic, that is great. But we're here to talk about the specific about what does this news now, not a month from now, not 3 months from now, not 6 months from now. What does this news now do for the movie theater industry? I think there's a possibility for a couple of very positive things. How often Rob, in the last 6 months, how often have we been able to use movie theaters and the word positive in the same sentence? Not often.
Many.
Not many and not much. But this could be an extremely positive thing. Obviously, the initial reaction was quick and instantaneous. The market saw that. They believe that boded very well for the theaters, and instantly movie theaters stocks all shot up. The longer term question, though, that they asked in the main question here is, would this possibly have creditors, investors be willing to have a little, steel themselves a little more to hang in there? Because Rob, one of the things that you and I have talked about over the past couple of months is you can get into this spiral if you're the movie theaters of taking on more debt and taking on more debt and then taking on more debt. But at some point, the people who lend money aren't going to lend any more money.
Right.
Because they're going to see
any more money to lend.
They don't have any more money to lend. And if you try to go to a new lender, they're like, well, you've already got 5 other people you owe money to that are going to get paid back before me if I lend you any, blah, blah, blah. Something like this, though, could very much encourage, number one, the people who are currently invested to have a lot more patience because they're seeing signs of maybe light at the end of the tunnel. And number two, it could open the door for some potential investors to say, hey, look, the stock is rising. It looks like there might be some light at the end of the tunnel as far as this pandemic goes. Yeah, maybe we do feel comfortable stepping in and giving AMC theaters or Cinemark or whatever an additional lifeline to get them over that finish line to where they got to be for when the movies start coming out again. Because Rob, I've always said that I believe if, and that's a huge if the theaters can survive till when the movies start coming out again, I believe they'll be fine. I just haven't been so confident that they can actually stay alive until that happens. This could be that olive branch they need. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic. It's quite possible. It could be that little bit of hope that they need that maybe says they can get there. I don't know, Rob, you've seen the events transpiring over the last few days. What do you make of this?
Well, look, I mean, even the scientists themselves are saying a 90% effectiveness rate is pretty extraordinary. I would almost say too good to be true. And to me, like I just, when coming up with a vaccine for something like this so quickly with so much money at stake and lives at stake, I would always err on the side of caution. But that said, Pfizer and their German partner company are pretty reputable companies in terms of big pharma. But then again, do you trust big pharma? I don't know.
Well, but that's a good point you raised, Rob. That should be. This is not some. Maybe not everybody recognizes the name Pfizer, but it is important to note that you were just bringing up. This is not some fly-by-night mom and pop. This is a very well-established, very long-standing, very reputable pharmaceutical company. But anyway, please continue.
Well, and I would say that, look, a vaccine is obviously, when it comes to things like Disney parks, movie theaters, sporting events, large gatherings. I mean, that's the one thing that we've really lost so much from is we can't go anywhere. We can't be around other people. And movie theaters are all about getting together with strangers in the dark. And so I hope that this works out. And if they can really start distributing this, and let's hope there's no long-term effects that aren't revealed for a while, that it works, I think it's the best news in the world for movie theaters. I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly, I'll tell you this, I'm not somebody who's going to get on the front lines to be a test subject. I saw I Am Legend. I know what can happen.
Will Smith warned me about you guys.
But I do think that, all medical advances like this are born out of innovation. And sometimes when people need to step up, we've got the greatest. I mean, there was almost a Manhattan Project like fervor behind solving this problem in the last year. And you know, I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think movie theaters should be too. And dude, I just want to look selfishly. There's like 10 movies I want to see in the theater.
Yep, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it would be great. But hey, listen, regardless of how good or bad this turns out to be, it is at least the first little bit of potentially good news for the movie theater industry at this point. But what do you guys think? You know, the market reacted very positively. Do you think this will continue to have a positive effect moving forward for the theaters? Or do you think this is just a flash in the pan? How do you guys see this? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Darren Harris. And Darren Harris writes, "Hey, John, I've been watching you since the AMC days as the Avengers premiere coverage." Oh my gosh, that is going back a ways. Anyway, I don't know if there's anyone as busy in Hollywood as Dwayne Johnson. On top of everything else he's got going, he just announced that he and his production company are planning on bringing back the Scorpion King. My question is this really the right move? Are people asking for another Scorpion King movie? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, you heard that right. You heard that right. I had to do a little bit of a double take. When I first saw this and I first heard about this, that I'm like, wait, what? Yep. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is bringing Scorpion King back. This is what we get from the folks over. This is what Dwayne Johnson said. "The Scorpion King was my very first role ever on the silver screen. And I'm honored and excited to reimagine and deliver this cool mythology to a whole new generation. I wouldn't have had the career I'm lucky enough to have had it not been for the Scorpion King, and I'm thrilled that we at 7 Bucks Productions, that's his production company, can help create those same opportunities for other hardworking actors today. I believe Jonathan Herman, who's going to be the screenwriter on this, will put in the hard work to deliver a fantastic script for our global audience." Now, Jonathan Herman was the screenwriter of Straight Outta Compton, if I'm not mistaken. Now, a couple of interesting things to note here. Number one is that it looks like Dwayne Johnson himself will not be the Scorpion King. From everything that we're hearing, it sounds like he's not himself going to be the Scorpion King. Now, he's not ruled out that he can be in it and be a part of it on screen. And if he's producing it, he knows that if he's in the movie, that'll raise the box office of it. I suspect we'll see him in the movie in some role, but from all accounts and from every indicator so far, it doesn't sound like he's going to be like the star, that he's not going to be the Scorpion King in it. And that's perfectly fine. Question is, why do the Scorpion King, Rob? Really? Now, for you, those of you who may not know this,
known for its great visual effects.
It's fabulous visual effects. And some of you may not remember this or know this, but over the past number of years, there have been several other Scorpion King movies that have come out, not involving Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that have gone straight to home video and things like that. I even believe, who played the original Hellboy again? And he was in... Ron
Perlman.
Ron Perlman. Yeah, Ron Perlman was even in one or two of these other Scorpion King movies. Not a good look, but bring it back. But then I thought about it for a second, Rob. I thought about it for a minute. I thought, well, let's just look at Scorpion King for a second. It's sand and sandal high fantasy adventure. Okay, that works. It's monsters. That works. It's got a recognizable IP, which does not always work in your favor, but in this case, maybe not bad. And you still got the power of the name of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson behind it, depending on how big of a role he actually decides to play on screen outside of just a producer. And while I thought it was totally ridiculous at first, the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? If I'm a studio exec and this package gets brought to me, it's like, hey, we want to do this movie. This is what we're looking at and blah, blah, blah. I'm not so sure I wouldn't greenlight it. I think there's potential here, especially with Dwayne. Now, if Dwayne Johnson's not attached, maybe I laugh somebody out of the room, but it does make me look at it a little bit differently. I'm thinking, you know what? That could work. I'm not sure it will, but it could. Anyway, Rob, you heard about this. Dwayne Johnson wants to bring back Scorpion King. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, you know, the way I feel about all of this stuff is if you've got a great script, great characters, great story, that's all that really matters. I mean, you can make anything good, but the question is it good? And the Scorpion King, it's not exactly. I mean, the Scorpion King was the third mummy movie. But I mean, it's actually the fourth. It's a mummy spinoff. Pardon me.
Yeah.
And I it's like the Hobbs and Shaw of the Mummy franchise.
That's actually very accurate.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's kind of okay. But the real question is, do people want to see that now? I mean, when you've grown up with the Scorpion King and you have that, I can understand wanting to bring it back. But I just think, it's so interesting to me, John. We live in a world where television is being so innovative, like watching something like The Queen's Gambit and having it affect me as much as it did, an adaptation of a Walter Tevis novel. And yet the studios are giving us, Universal's going to give us another Scorpion King movie. I mean, you'd think that Dwayne Johnson, with all the power that he wields, could be making something new and unique. Like I'm actually really stoked to see Jungle Cruise, believe it or not. and I would just like to see him use his formidable powers to bring us things we haven't seen. I mean, I understand reading his statement, it's very heartfelt, and I get why he wants to do it. But wouldn't it be neat to see something we hadn't seen before?
But I mean, when you look at the prolific nature of Dwayne Johnson, he's bringing us a lot of projects. He's bringing us a lot. So, the old George Clooney adage, one for them, one for me, one for them, one for me. And so when I look at just the sheer volume of material, like he's got Black Adam coming, and he's got that one he's doing with Ryan Reynolds coming on Netflix. He's got like 5 or 6 other projects on the go. For him to sit back, to me, it actually moves me a little bit when he says, look, this is the property that gave me my career. This is the property that allowed me to transition out of professional wrestling and to being the biggest movie star today. So there's a real emotional attachment he has there as well. But, somebody in the live chat, I believe it was KC in the live chat, said something that, I think they meant it as a joke, but I could totally see him doing it. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has a cousin in professional wrestling who's a very popular wrestler by the name of Roman Reigns. And he put Roman Reigns in Hobbs and Shaw. I wouldn't be shocked if Dwayne Johnson gave the lead role of Scorpion King to his cousin Roman Reigns. I wouldn't be. I think that would be a mistake. I don't think Roman Reigns can act, but I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. Anyway, guys, question for you is, you heard the news about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's going to be bringing back Scorpion King. What do you think? Do you think, you know what? Yeah, it's been long enough. You can reboot this. The basic mythology is there to make something really good. Or are you thinking, come on, guys, they've already run this thing into the ground. Let's just move on to something else. How do you feel about it? Jump into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's now move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Fanimator. And Fanimator writes, "Hey, John, it's just been announced that Mads Mikkelsen, Hannibal himself, is in talks to replace Johnny Depp in the Fantastic Beasts movies. While I would have preferred Depp to stay around long enough to finish the series, Mads would be a great pick to fill his shoes. Now, he will have been in every major blockbuster franchise. He's in James Bond, he's in Star Wars, he's in Marvel, and now the Harry Potter universe. What do you think of this choice? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Fanimator. And yeah, look, one of the big topics of conversation around here and everywhere in movie spheres the last couple of days has obviously been Johnny Depp getting removed from the Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts franchise. And we've talked on this show specifically that really Warner Brothers had no choice at this point. They were put into a no-win situation. They had to remove him. So be it. Well, now what do you do? I personally felt that maybe a good option was just to kill the franchise. I mean, between all the controversy with Depp and then all the controversy with Miller and then the controversy with J.K. Rowling herself, the fact that the last Harry Potter, the last Fantastic Beasts movies was the lowest grossing of all the Harry Potter films, it just seems like maybe they should pull the plug on, even though I like the last Fantastic Beasts movies. I like the last one. I kind of don't mind these films. I like watching them, but I kind of felt like maybe it's time to pull the plug. Well, they said they were going to go out and recast it, and it looks like they have, as all the major trades are reporting, that Mads Mikkelsen is in talks to replace Depp. Now, you got to remember that once you get to the stage, and Rob, you and I have talked about this before, once you get to the point that you're now in talks, you're working out the contract and everything, that point means the studio has already decided they want him, and it means he has already decided he wants the role. It's not like they're still in an auditioning process. The studio decided he's our guy. He's decided he wants the role. Now that they've gotten to that point, let's work out details. 95% of the time, once you hit this stage, it becomes a signed and a done deal. There's still a possibility here, though, Rob, that maybe these talks fall apart. So that is a possibility, but it's a 95% certainty right now that he probably will end up being in this role if they're already just trying to work out details and contract stuff. Look, to me, there's no such thing as the perfect guy to play a particular role. Any actor can step. Who would have thought Hugh Jackman was going to be the perfect Wolverine? Everybody hated the casting of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and now we can't imagine anybody else doing it. But I got to tell you, Rob, having seen Crimes of Grindelwald and gotten a feel for this character, this Grindelwald character, Mads Mikkelsen's perfect.
Right.
I mean, he's perfect. Not only is he a world-class actor, which is just always the number one priority, is just get talent. Get talent. That's Mads Mikkelsen. Once you get talent and you have that main, most important thing established, now you do the fine, the detailing of finding a good fit. Once you got the main talent down, now find the right fit. Mads Mikkelsen is a world-class talent, and oh my God, he is genetically constructed to play this Grindelwald character. He is absolutely genetically constructed to play this Grindelwald character. So listen, there are several other names they could have come back with that I would have been excited about to say, yeah, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. But I wasn't even thinking Mads Mikkelsen. And here they come along now and say Mads Mikkelsen. Rob, I think, putting all the other noise aside for a second, putting all the controversy and the court drama and everything else, putting that all aside for a second, if you just bring it down to the pure question of there's a Grindelwald role that needs to be filled, and we're thinking about filling it with Mads Mikkelsen, I literally cannot find a flaw in it. I just can't. Anyway, Rob, you heard about this news. What do you make of it?
Well, you know what? The first time I ever saw Mads Mikkelsen was in Casino Royale. 14 years ago, and right. I fell in love with that guy. And of course, Brian Fuller's reimagining of Hannibal. He was incredible as Hannibal. I loved him in Rogue One, and he just has a presence, a look, and a presence that is so unique. And his voice, his Danish voice, I can't get enough of it. I think he'll be amazing. I think he's a perfect choice to follow up. And I think that Johnny Depp, and I can't think of somebody better that they could cast. And he'll bring something to it that I think is really memorable. Not that Johnny Depp doesn't, but Mads Mikkelsen, there's something about him, something otherworldly. And when he's playing a character that's bad, it doesn't get any better.
He's so good. Well, I mean, look, obviously, one of the bits of controversy that popped up once his name emerged was, we don't want Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. We want him as Hannibal Lecter, damn it. Where's our Hannibal season 4? Which has been, kind of a lot of people have been talking about that. And of course, he did bring listen, I admit, I was late to the party on Hannibal. So I thought, oh, come on, really Hannibal, but now a TV show? Give me a break. Then I kept hearing about everybody talking about how great it was, how great it was, how great it was. And I think it was after its second season that I went, fine, I'll go watch. Oh my God, it's so good. Hannibal is so good. And him as Hannibal Lecter is just awe-inspiring, which I guess kind of lays the groundwork. Like we see him, like you said, we see him in Casino Royale. What was his name in that? Le Chiffre? We see him in Casino Royale. We see him in Hannibal. I loved him in Rogue One.
He was so good.
Him. He was so good. And he
has a nobility. There was a nobility in him that, even though he's forced to build the Death Star, whatever. I mean, he has this gravitas that a lot of actors just don't have.
No, I agree. Now, and look, I'm on record as saying that I really do quite like Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald. And I think the best part of that movie was Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. That being said, and this might sound a little controversial. All things being equal, let's say there was no controversy at all surrounding Johnny Depp right now. Let's say there was none. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. If a studio head came to me and said, John, we've got this new, we got to make this the third Fantastic Beasts movie, but we have the option of swapping out Johnny Depp with Mads Mikkelsen. I'm not convinced I wouldn't just swap it out anyway. Like I just, when you think about what it is he brings to it, but I don't know. Question for you guys is, this was pretty fast. But you know what, Rob? Let me just bring up that one other point because I almost forgot to mention this. I think this highlights the fact that Warner Brothers has been prepared for parting ways with Johnny Depp and probably had Mads Mikkelsen waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
Maybe for a month or more. And I think this just drives home again the fact that Warner Brothers had already done its own investigation, and now we're just waiting for an actual court to make some sort of declaration so that they could publicly pull the trigger on it and bring him in. I still believe, though, if like the Johnny Depp court case had come back in favor of Johnny Depp, I don't think Warner Brothers would have made the move at that point. I think they just would have stuck with Depp at that point. But I think this highlights that Mads Mikkelsen and Warner Brothers had probably come to a little bit of an agreement weeks, if not a month or longer ago. Don't you think? Like, how do you think that played out?
Yeah, no, I look, as we've always said on the show, when this comes out in the press, when somebody leaks it, if it's whether it's the representatives of the actor or somebody at the studio, these negotiations have been going on for a very long time. This is not something that just happened like yesterday. They talked. The Harry Potter franchise is too valuable to Warner Brothers they don't do anything. It's not like they're superhero movies where they were just making them willy-nilly and they look in the press like, we got to pull back on Zack Snyder's vision. Let's change Batman v Superman. They don't do that with Harry Potter. I mean,
it's true. All right, guys, question is, what do you think? I mean, look, all things considered, putting everything else aside, there is a role that needs to be filled with Grindelwald. What do you think about the choice of Mads Mikkelsen? I think it's a pretty damn good choice, all things considered. What do you guys think? Jump into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live questions. Once again, if you want to get a live comment or question on the show here, simply use the tip link that's in the top of the description of the video or right here manually, streamlins.com/movieblogtv/tip. And let's get over to it. We're going to start things off here with one from K Major, who writes, what does K Major write? There he is. He writes, John, just adding my 2 cents to the conversation about Mandalorian Episode 2. People were complaining about it not being part of the larger story. To that, I would say, look at the monster season shows like Arrow or Flash with 22 to 24 episodes. How many episodes? Let me get this back in here. How many episodes were actually part of the main story thread in that particular season? I think the term filler sometimes gets a bad rap. Filler episodes sometimes give us the best means to understand a certain character or main characters outside of the main story. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Look, the term filler episode, there was this episode of Community where they literally, there was something that went on. I just remember reading about this. There was something going on. They couldn't do their regular thing. They literally had to create like a filler episode, right? Just something to fill the airways and something like that. I think people misunderstand what a filler episode is. And I think still there are a lot of people who fundamentally misunderstand what kind of show Mandalorian is. And because the blueprint is the same as it was for season 1. Episode 1 sets the journey. What is this journey? In this season, it's about Mando trying to get the child or Baby Yoda back. First of all, understand where his people are, what his people are, and how to get him to them, right? Unlike a lot of shows, whether it's a Sons of Anarchy or a Breaking Bad or whatever, where everything is narrative, in a show like the gritty Western style of Mandalorian, what you've got to understand is the journey is the story. The journey is the story. Yeah, in a lot of traditional narratives, oh, we hear that there might be some secret clue on that planet. Okay. 3-second transitional shot of the Razor Crest flying by in space, and there you're on the new planet. But in storytelling like this, no, the journey to get from here to here is the story. That is the story to tell. And then while you're telling that story, incorporate deeper understanding of our characters, introduce us to elements that are going to have larger consequences further down the line, all that kind of stuff. You know, it was our friend Kevin Rubio pointed out to me that Frog Lady and her husband and her baby eggs are actually in the trailer of an upcoming episode. They're in that first trailer in an upcoming episode. They're in that town square with Mando when he sees the Sasha Banks character. It's like, I didn't even realize that. And Kevin Rubio sent me this still frame showing that, nope, there's Frog Lady with her husband and the baby. So clearly there's a larger part to play. And so, I don't know, that's just kind of the way I see it, is that when you're watching these shows, whether you think it's a good episode or a not very good episode, you got to understand that these stories on the ride to the West, that is the story of Mandalorian. I don't know, Rob, how would you address that?
Well, I think you're pretty close there. I mean, the problem I think that people are having is television has evolved in a certain way that we expect a certain kind of story now. Serialized storytelling, whether we've seen it starting all the way back to things like St. Elsewhere, Breaking Bad, leads to Breaking Bad, X-Files became serialized. And people are expecting that from Mandalorian, but really Mandalorian is more of a throwback to, like you said, to Gunsmoke or Have Gun Will Travel or Bonanza. And I think people are imposing modern expectations on Star Wars has always been classical storytelling. The original Star Wars took so much from Kurosawa, and I think what they're doing now is it's shrewd in the sense that new viewers can jump in and watch any episode of The Mandalorian. But then the only problem is, they've broken it into chapters. So they're telling you every time, chapter 10, The Passenger. So it's like, okay, well, if you're structuring it like a book, or chapters, when they say chapter, maybe it's like a serial or something, whatever, there is an expectation that one thing does in fact lead to another. And I just think that there's not enough. If I have any criticism, the episodes are almost too standalone. And it does seem sort of like willy-nilly, like The Mandalorian doesn't seem to, he just kind of, okay, I'll take on a passenger. It's not like, he doesn't seem to have much agency. Like, he doesn't have a plan. And I think that's what everybody is sort of responding to. It's like, well, Mando's looking, he doesn't seem to be very proactive on his search. He goes to a planet, kind of hangs out. I'm looking for this guy's people, but I haven't done much investigating about that. He kind of gets caught up.
He gets a lead. He hears something on Tatooine. He follows up on that lead. Now he gets another lead. Could be at this other system, but the only way you can get there is you take on this passenger. All right. So, he's investigating. He's following up the leads.
I guess. he certainly takes a lot of side quests on the show.
As is life.
It does feel some video.
As is life. I did a lot of things while making my movie, right? And I was making my movie, and then I went and did this, and I went, anyway, we'll see. We'll see. I am very, very excited for the next episode, though, I got to tell you. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Jesse who writes, I told my brother about the Quiet Place spinoff, and he asked me, I wonder why Krasinski isn't coming back to direct. Maybe because he'll be too busy doing something fantastic with Marvel. I told him probably not, but it's more fuel to the speculation fire. I don't read into that at all. Listen, John Krasinski wasn't even going to direct part 2. You gotta remember, it wasn't until basically the last minute that Krasinski went, all right, I'll direct it. Because he wasn't going to direct the second one. Considering it's also no surprise that he's not going to direct the third when you consider two things. One, he wasn't even originally planning on directing the second one anyway, but the third one's not going to have his wife. The third one is going to be a different group of characters, within this world, right? So it's not even going to have his wife. So the idea of coming back to work with his wife and direct his wife, Emily Blunt, in it, that's not there anymore either. So no, I wouldn't look at all into anything like this. And besides, a lot of people, Rob, when they think of Hollywood, they think, oh, this guy's got a certain movie project coming up. He can't do anything else. Well, when you look at a lot of IMDb's of a lot of people, a lot of directors or actors, whatever, they'll have like 4 or 5 upcoming projects. Just because they've got an upcoming project at some point doesn't mean they can't go and do 2 or 3 other things around it, right? So look, we all are speculating about whether John Krasinski is going to be Mr. Fantastic. Of course we all are. But I would not take at all him not directing a third spin-off, if you will, of A Quiet Place as any sort of indicator that, oh, that's because he's going to be doing I don't think one has anything to do with the other. Rob, do you agree or do you see it differently?
Well, no, I mean, I tend to agree with that. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, I do.
But we all do want to see him as Mr. Fantastic, right? I think everybody would love to see that.
Yeah, look, I think what happens is, like you said, directing the second film like he wasn't supposed to. The second film, by the way, looks really, really pretty great.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that, remember, this is not. They said the film's an offshoot of this universe, so it might be a whole different idea. And the reason this director was chosen is because he has the take on it. That's why usually a director gets hired, because they have an affinity for the material and they've presented a vision for this material, and it sounds like it's great. I mean, I don't think it necessarily one thing is tied to the other at all. I just think that this director, John Krasinski doesn't want to direct Quiet Place movies for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Yep, no, good point. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Willow, who writes, I know directors usually don't make the trailers for their own movies. That is true. But did you cut the trailer for Movie Trailers, A Love Story? If you did a trailer review of a trailer for a documentary about trailers, how many levels of trailerception is that? You know what? I had Rob, yesterday was so surreal for me. Because, we put out the trailer the other day of Movie Trailers, A Love Story, and it became really surreal for me when I started noticing there were trailer reactions online for my trailer to my movie about trailers. It was very, very weird, and it was very odd. But I can answer the question about did I cut. Number one, you're right. Most of the time, directors do not make their own trailers. But in my case, that is also true. I did not cut the trailer to it. Cutting trailers, I learned, is a very, very unique skill. It's a very, very different skill than just regular editing, right? And, I played around with it a little bit. I was like, no, this isn't, I don't got the gift to make good trailers. So what I did was, I've always enjoyed the trailers that my friend Christian's Schmodown has. They have great trailers for their events, like really top-notch great trailers for their events. So I reached out to Christian a while back and I said, hey, who does your trailers? And he mentioned this kid Eric he works with, or known online as Nerd Chronic. And so Christian hooked me and Eric up, and I said, this is what I'm looking for. This is kind of what I want. Here's some of the parameters. And then I provided him with the movie, and we went back and forth. He told me little bits of what he needed and stuff like that. And we ended up with the trailer. So no, just like many other movies, I went and got somebody to cut my trailer, and I thought they did a fantastic job. Like, Rob, I know you and I've only talked about it briefly, but I personally, and I know I'm talking about my own movie and everything, but seriously, I thought he did a great job cutting that trailer. Because I've said to you a number of times, how do you cut an interesting trailer about people talking about a subject? And I wasn't quite sure. And I thought Eric did a great job.
Oh, I thought he did a fantastic job. And not only that, you know what? I've seen the movie. And I watched
yes,
the trailer,
you have.
I watched the trailer and I'm like, I want to go watch that again. No, I thought the trailer was to toot our own horns or whatever. I thought it was really good. And it also conveyed, it conveyed, a trailer is supposed to convey excitement about what you're going to see. It's supposed to instill this must-see feeling in you. And I think the trailer did that. And, the one thing about your movie, it's fun. It's fun to watch. And the trailer conveyed that. We even talk about in the movie trailers that completely mislead the audience and things like that. And I thought this trailer was the trailer for your film was a great encapsulation of what it's like to watch the movie itself. And I think it makes a promise to the audience, and the film itself fulfills that promise. And that's something that the movie itself deals with. And I think that, like any great trailer, that's exactly what it did.
Yeah, I thought our trailer editor did a really great job on that level. Thank you for asking, Willow. I appreciate that. All right, next up, Andrew Nathan writes, "Hey, John, I was wondering if you've seen Noises Off. Have you watched my show very much? I was wondering if you've seen Noises Off. It is my second all-time favorite comedy. As a matter of fact, I've wondered if you've seen Noises Off. It stars Michael Caine, who is a British director that helms an American version of the 1982 play. It also stars greats such as Carol Burnett, Christopher Reeve, John Ritter, and Denholm Elliott. Listen, I talk about Noises Off all the time. A good plate of sardines. Honestly, I think it is the second funniest movie ever made. My favorite all-time comedy is 40-Year-Old Virgin. My second all-time favorite comedy is Noises Off. That movie never ceases to, and you're right, it's an older film. Rob, it's one of these films I really like. I took a film, the film class of Dove S.S. Simmons, and during that class, because Quentin Tarantino said you should take this class, so I went and took it. And one of the things that he said in that 2-day class that I took is he really talked about one environment movies, or at least movies that, like, the vast majority of the movie takes place in one environment, and talks about the simplicity of it, but the skill it takes to do it. And so I think of movies like Ryan Reynolds' Buried, or I think of the Sylvester Stallone movie Oscar, that all takes place in one house. And the vast majority of Noises Off takes place in an empty theater with stage rehearsals, them trying to make this play. And when you do that, you really, really rely on the talent of your performers. And Carol Burnett, Christopher Reeve, John Ritter, on and on and on. And by the way, I think the only other movie other than the Indiana Jones films that I recognize Marcus, Indy's main handler guy from the Indiana Jones movies. He's in it too. I can't recommend it enough. It is so good. It's called Noise. I don't know if I ever asked you, have you ever seen Noises Off?
Dude, I have not. And I keep, ever since you and I started doing this show together, you've mentioned this movie at least 100,000 times. And I feel I should just buy it on Blu-ray and watch it and own it.
It's so delightful. And Michael Caine
it's right up my alley too. So I don't know why.
It is. It's completely up your alley. I think you'll get a really good kick out of it. It's just so good. Carol Burnett is awesome in it. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's see. Roman Bryant writes, "Hey, John, did you grow up watching Full House?" Not really. I mean, I've seen a bunch of Full House episodes. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I've only ever seen 3 or 4. No, I've seen many Full House episodes. But really? Full House to me was never a show that I was like, oh, it wasn't like for me, a show like, I'm trying to think of a sitcom that I would absolutely have to watch every week, but it wasn't one of those. It wasn't like, oh, Tuesday at 8 o'clock, I got to be in front of my TV to watch Full House. So no, not really, actually. I really wasn't. I think it is. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, Legolas gets all the credit for taking down an Oliphant on his own, but somehow everyone forgets that Éomer took down 2 by himself just with 1 spear throw. Yes, technically that's true, Rob, but they were different. One was kind of a consequence of something that Éomer did, whereas Legolas literally took on an Oliphant and took it down. So I mean, technically speaking, I don't know. How would you address that?
Come on, man. Legolas surfed down its trunk.
I know, right?
He went trunk surfing the same way he went shield boarding in at the Battle of Helm's Deep. I mean, Legolas is a badass. He ran up one side and surfed down the other. I don't think you should ever diminish Legolas's achievements in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. So
no, it was great.
I think Legolas deserves all the credit. Not to take anything away from anyone else, but I mean, come on.
All right. Next up, we go to an anonymous viewer who writes in, I really hope they keep using T'Challa in the MCU. If you can recast Dumbledore, you can recast T'Challa. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, first of all, I think just on principle, the principle of that is enough. Look, an actor is playing the role. If an actor is no longer there, the role is still there. I believe that. But my argument was always that beyond that basic principle, I also believe that T'Challa is just too important, even in our society and what the character of T'Challa represents. I've always felt T'Challa is far too important of a character to let go because the actor who played him isn't there anymore. And lest we forget, Rob, I know you and I have kind of slightly various different points of view on this, but we were talking about this the other day because the Alex Trebek thing came up, and we're talking about, when do you replace Alex Trebek on Jeopardy and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that was quick to point out is look, it's not like Chadwick Boseman only ever played T'Challa. Chadwick Boseman was an actor who played many roles. And a role will be played by different actors. I mean, right. Nobody is, it's funny because nobody's come out and said, nobody can ever play James Brown again. Nobody can ever play James Brown. Nobody's come out and said, nobody can play, if anybody tries to play Jackie Robinson again, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful if somebody else tries to play Jackie Robinson now. Nobody said that because we know that's just not the case. And I understand that we as film fans, we develop these emotional attachments and we have an emotional basis in this right now. But yeah, I'm still of the case. Now, you made kind of a different argument that was really interesting about that, about how, maybe the passing of Chadwick Boseman could serve as an opportunity to discuss these other issues within the MCU and how they appear there with the now T'Challa being gone. Well, that was a very different take that I haven't heard anybody else do before. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I still believe that T'Challa is culturally too important to let go at this point. And I agree. I think it's in honor and respect and homage to what Chadwick Boseman did. I believe you recast the role and you move forward. But Rob, I've had some time to think about it. You've had some time to think about it. Where's your position on that right now?
Well, look, on one hand, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. Look, they like you said, Rhodey started out as Terrence Howard, and then he became Don Cheadle, and that was obviously not such a linchpin character, but Rhodey is an important character as far as Iron Man is concerned because they're best friends. And I really like the fact that I really do like the story that they've continued on with Don Cheadle and how they've played that out. They've done a lot of interesting things with that. Now, Black Panther is a title. So the idea of whoever is the Black Panther, that can be passed down. Obviously, it's inherited. It can be changed. So there is a precedent to do that. And I think if they wanted, in the Marvel comics, like Captain Marvel, the first Captain Marvel, got cancer and died, and if memory serves. And if they wanted to go that route, they could cast a new actor, or they could do something with the mythology to honor Chad Boseman and the idea of what happened to him in real life, cut down in the prime of his life by a horrible affliction that affects so many human beings. They could do that, and I think it would be fine, and they could really make that work and incorporate it and really have a lesson to impart. But on the other hand, I think they could, in fact, recast the role with another great actor. I mean, obviously, that actor has big shoes to fill.
Yeah, huge.
But it's not like the MCU. Ed Norton got replaced by Mark Ruffalo, and that was a pretty seamless transition. The only thing is that Black Panther is one of the most successful MCU movies that wasn't an Avengers film, and he's so beloved, and he did such a great. I mean, I remember when that character, first seeing him as TChalla in Civil War, man, and he brought up, talk about royalty. I mean, he had such a commanding presence right from the get in that movie, and you just loved that character. And again, he carried through on Black Panther, and I mean, God, I loved his performance. So it's a tough act to follow, but like you said, he's an important character in the MCU, and I do not envy an actor who's going to step into those shoes and replace him. But you know what? If there's one franchise that could find somebody to do it, I think that Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito and Victoria Alonso, they'll find that person. And I think that person would honor Chad Boseman's performance and step into that character and honor everything that movie meant to so many people around the world. And, I used to think that they shouldn't do it, but now I've changed my tune. I think that the character is too center in terms of the MCU. And I think the MCU really needs Black Panther and needs Wakanda to move forward.
I agree. And, the one other thing to that to me is like, you mentioned, you're right. Black Panther is a title, not just title of a movie. Like even within the movie, that's a title that is passed down. But like, to me, when I think about, like, when you look back when Black Panther was coming out in theaters and like literally entire communities bringing in school buses of kids to see a first superhero on screen that they can more accurately relate to because it looks like them and stuff like that. And I think that's something a lot of us underestimate. It wasn't the Black Panther title that was inspiring them and that was moving them and that was so important to so many people. To me, it was TChalla. It was TChalla that was inspiring them. And I just... but you know what? At the end of the day, Rob, like you said, I trust Kevin Feige. And if they think, you know what, we've come up with a great way to move around T'Challa and pass on the Black Panther title, while my first reaction will be to think that's a shame, I trust Kevin Feige. And if he comes up with a way to do that, I'll just go, well, you know what? He's earned the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what he does. So anyway, sorry, we got sidetracked on that a little bit, but it's such a big and great topic to discuss. All right, next up, we've got Jack Lumbers writes, Wakanda versus our USA. Who would win? No nukes, because nuclear Armageddon. Well, I mean, if you want to take away that one aspect, look, Wakanda is a sci-fi fictional nation, right? With sci-fi decades ahead advance in technology. So I think the movie made it pretty clear they could almost take over the world. Almost. They can nearly take over the whole world by themselves. So that's like saying, who wins in a fight, John? George St. Pierre or Superman? Well, one's a fictional character with superpowers. I mean, come on. So yes, I would say probably Wakanda. Jack Lumbers also writes, if Johnny Depp also loses the US case and the appeal of the UK case, do you think that means he's done with Hollywood, at least for the foreseeable future? Well, I mean, look, if you're going to ask, okay, Rob, this is how I see it. If you're going to ask that question, you also, to be fair, have to ask the opposite question. So let's start with the question as it is. Johnny Depp has already had one court rule that the evidence says he did what he's accused of doing. We have a second court case coming up, though. Now, there are still a lot of people that are very, very supportive of Johnny Depp, even in the light of a court decision. They still like, no, we don't believe the courts and whatever. I will be very, very curious to see how Johnny Depp supporters react if also another court says you lose, Johnny Depp. The evidence that we've seen just does not look good on you. And all the evidence that we have says that you probably did what you're accused of doing. It will be interesting to see what current Johnny Depp supporters, how they react if another court says, hey, look, we looked at all the evidence and he did it. If that were to happen, I don't see, and you have two court cases in two different countries, both say that the evidence says you are, as the newspaper said, a wife beater. I don't know who hires him after that. I just don't. And but you also have to understand, besides that controversy, Johnny Depp had already developed a reputation in Hollywood about being a very difficult guy to work with. Like between his various struggles with drugs and alcohol, he just won't promote the films that he's involved in. He becomes a bit of a recluse. We remember that one big article that's written on him, all that kind of stuff. So if you take that and compound it with two court cases against him, then yeah, I think other than cameos here and there, I think his career is done. I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying I think it will be done. But if we're going to ask that question, Rob, because I don't think many of us disagree that if another court does it, I think he's pretty much finished. But let's ask the opposite question. And this is the question that is far more intriguing to me. What if he does this second court case and this second court says, actually, you know what? We agree with Johnny Depp. We find on behalf of Johnny Depp, we find, after looking at months of evidence and months of testimony, months of arguments, that yes, Johnny Depp was libeled against. He did not do the things he's accused of doing. That, to me, is the more interesting scenario, because then what do? I think Warner Brothers has burnt their bridge with Johnny Depp, and I think they're perfectly fine with that. But I think if a second course kind of mitigates it, I think he still has a career. I think there are going to be other studios that won't worry about working with him or hesitate to work with him if it's kind of if it became a split decision. One court said he did it, one court said he didn't. So some studios might say, who are we to say and who are we to decide? I don't think you'll see him back in Fantastic Beasts, but it makes things very interesting. Rob, what do you think happens if the second court case comes out and they actually find in favor of Johnny Depp?
Well, to me, it's like, look, the guy had a very tempestuous relationship with his trophy wife, who also is a Hollywood climber. So by all accounts, Johnny Depp was not a serial abuser. He's been with other women in the past. They all stepped up to defend him.
Okay, yeah, but to be fair, the same thing happened with O.J. Simpson. Just to be fair, the same thing happened. Yeah, everybody knew O.J. Simpson said he's the greatest guy. I mean, I'm just saying.
Right, but Johnny Depp and Amber Heard got in big fights, and anger and all that. Yes, but Johnny, you can't equate what happened with O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown Simpson to screaming and yelling. All
I'm saying is just because Johnny Depp has other relationships that were perfectly good and perfectly healthy doesn't mean that he wasn't capable of doing the thing. Because again, that's the OJ comparison, right? Like everybody knew OJ is like mean that he's the nicest guy. It doesn't mean that he
does, though. It doesn't. And I think that look, I know nothing about this. I didn't hear the case. I didn't hear the evidence. But it's not like it's Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. It's I don't know. But like you said, it's in your scenario. If he's found innocent of these charges, well, then I think that's remember, it was a libel case against a British tabloid. So the British tabloid was exonerated, or whatever you want to call it, because these things actually happened. So the British tabloid reporting on them. But whether Johnny Depp actually is this criminal behavior, I don't know. I think if he beats a court case or a court finds him innocent of all these charges, well, that's a very different thing. That's actually a court has exonerated Johnny Depp, and I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt. That's how our court system should work. And maybe he should have a career.
Yeah. I agree. I think if the second court comes out and says and they exonerate him and say, yeah, you were a victim of libel here, Johnny Depp. I think you're going to see most other, again, not Warner Brothers, but I think you're going to see other studios will still be willing to work with him moving forward. And that to me is the much more interesting scenario. But again, would you agree with my basic assessment though, that if a second court comes out and says, hey, Johnny Depp, the proof here says that you actually did the things you're accused of doing. Do you agree that probably pretty much ends his career?
Yeah. I mean, how do you justify that? How do you justify that to your shareholders? How do you justify that to audiences? How do you justify that to anybody?
But we'll see. Well, there's still a second court case to come. I'm going to be watching it with great interest. All right, let's move on here. Next topic comes to us from Min Tran, who writes, if Dr. Sivana did not release the 7 deadly sins, do you think the wizard Shazam would have chosen Billy? Yes. Yeah, because you got to remember, in Shazam, the search never stopped. The wizard Shazam was constantly looking for the next person. That's why when you start to get to see Dr. Sivana, you realize there are tons of people that the wizard brought to his cave. Tons. And he always found that they didn't meet the criteria. And it was pretty clear that he was not willing to bypass the criteria for Billy. You know, if Billy wasn't the guy, he wasn't going to pass it on. So yes, I do think the way the movie structures it in Shazam, that he would have passed the power of Shazam on to Billy. Yes, I absolutely do. Even if Sivana had not released the 7 deadly sins. All right. Welly writes, greetings from New Zealand. I bought ticket from the Studio City. Oh, this is neat. I bought a ticket from the Studio City International Film Festival to watch your movie, and it was awesome. I still use iTunes and trailers to see HD trailers, but didn't realize the site was that old. We talk a little bit about Apple trailers in the movie. Also, I can watch all the movies for free. So yes, one of the film festivals that my movie Trailers a Love Story is a part of. You can see the top one there is the Studio City International Film Festival. I was very, very honored that we were selected for that and for NBC Universal's Portland Film Festival. Extremely excited and honored. I still remember I called Rob about each of those when I found out we got selected in there and was so pumped about it.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it was very, very exciting. And I'm so glad you had a chance to watch the movie, Welly. And thank you so much for your kind words, man. I really appreciate that, dude. All right. Next up, Casey McNatt writes, hey, John, how are you doing today? I'm doing very well, thank you. If they couldn't have Depp continuing in the role of Grindelwald, I think Mads Mikkelsen would be an awesome choice. If these rumors are true, I remember watching Hannibal a few years ago, and he was brilliant in that. Listen, once in a while, Rob, sometimes we talk about performers that take material and are able to actually elevate the material.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's some perfectly good actors that go in and take the material, do a perfectly good job. But there are some actors, I think of a Charlize Theron or a Denzel Washington. There are some actors who can actually step into a role and actually, if it's just good material, they can just elevate it and just kind of make it great. I think Hannibal is a good show. I honestly think that. I think Hannibal is a good show. I think Mads Mikkelsen makes it a great show. He's just able to elevate that material in that role. And I have found that he has done the same with everything else. Even Polar, the Netflix movie Polar, which not everybody loved, but because of the way he plays the Black Kaiser in it, it just elevates the movie for me and actually kind of made it enjoyable. Am I overstating it here? Or what do you think of him as a performer on that level?
Oh, no, I agree with you. I think what you want, I think what every writer or director wants an actor to do is to take the words on the page and bring that magic to them to give you an indelible performance that you can never take that away from the actor. I mean, you forever remember the actor giving that performance. And, one of the things about Mads Mikkelsen, talking about Hannibal, look at the act he had to follow. Academy Award winner Anthony Hopkins, who made this. I mean, who would have ever thought that an actor could come along and play that same role and not emulate the performance of Anthony Hopkins, but give us an entirely different take that almost makes you forget you ever saw Silence of the Lambs. And that's an astonishing thing to do. And even though he doesn't have a lot of screen time in Rogue One, he as a father and as a man that's sort of locked in and imprisoned literally by the Empire and what the Empire wants from him, he brings such a nobility and such, in a way, a sadness. And he's such a good father. And you feel the first 5 minutes of Rogue One, we meet this guy and you love this guy. You feel so sad for him and you like him because he's clearly a good father. And then he has to, he gets hauled off by Krennic and thrown back into the service of the Empire. I mean, that's all because Mads Mikkelsen has something inside of him that just makes you love that guy. And that's what you want from any actor or actress to define a role.
It does remind me of one thing. I love Rogue One. Let's be clear about that. I love Rogue One and I love Mads Mikkelsen in it. But one thing that has always struck me as odd is that you have Mads Mikkelsen who talks the way he talks, in that excellent, like this awesome accent he has. And then his daughter, "Oi, governor, where the bad people coming, father?" Like in this like total English Cockney kind of accent. It's like, why does her voice sound like that if she learned to talk from him? That always struck me as really funny. It's a funny thing. Seriously, every time that kid talks, all I want to use, "Oi, governor." Anyway, okay, let's move on. Next up, I think, is it Nate Dogg this next? Yes, it is. Nate Dogg writes, "Is there a cooler guy in Hollywood than John Favreau? Star Wars, Marvel, the Chef Show on Food Network." By the way, the Chef Show, I believe it's on Netflix, not the Food Network. Have you watched his show, Chef, yet?
Yeah.
Oh my God. If you guys haven't seen it, it's so good. Even if you don't like cooking shows, it's really fun to watch. Anyway.
It's really fun.
Those are three of my favorite things. He's living my best life. No, John Favreau is great. And listen, I will tell you what, Rob, I've said this before. I will say it again. Too often movie fans, they confuse skill sets, right? It's like, I remember when we start talking about how, I'm a big fan of Kathy Kennedy. She should not be the head of Lucasfilm. But when the conversation will come up, people say, Dave Filoni should do it. Dave Filoni knows nothing about being an executive. He knows nothing about being an executive. There's nothing. He doesn't even know how to make live action stuff. Now this work with John Favreau, he does a little bit. But we confuse. It's like, oh, somebody's really good at doing this one thing I like. He can do this other thing, and not realizing it's a totally different thing. John Favreau, though, when you look at all the stuff he's produced, and then when I watched, I think you and I talked about this, when we were watching the Mandalorian making of documentary series, one of the things that really stood out to me the most is when I would see John Favreau, it's like, that's a studio executive. Like this is a guy who knows how to marshal the right talent and then how to equip the talent, how to empower that talent around them, how to know how to run an operation from a top-down sort of thing. I just watched John Favreau in those things, and I've watched him in other things since. And even in watching him on Chef, like hearing how he talks about his projects and his companies and all this kind of stuff, it's like, that dude is a studio executive. He's a great director. He's a great writer. But I think at his core, John Favreau really has the giftings of a studio executive. And I could totally see, when people first came up and started saying, well, what about John Favreau? It's like, okay, he's a famous director, but I don't even see him as that anymore. Now I just see him, he's a great executive. And I would love to see him as the next head of Lucasfilm. And if not, that's fine. Like, nobody knew who Kevin Feige was when he became kind of the head guy of MCU movies. Nobody in the public knew who he was. And I'm totally fine if they go out and get a really, really gifted person who can run that thing as an executive and then put the other right people around them. But I'll tell you what, Rob, I think they could do far worse than getting a John Favreau. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Favreau?
No, I agree. But I think ultimately Favreau is a creative. I mean, the difference between being an executive at a studio and being a filmmaker is a very different thing. And I think John Favreau is, ever since he wrote Swingers, which is one of the great indie films of the 90s.
I love Swingers.
And I love it too. And it was one of the things that inspired me to make Free Enterprise. And I love Swingers. And he's been a creative for 25 years. And I think, what a filmmaker wants the most is to be in charge of the projects that they're working on. And remember, he's the creator of The Mandalorian. It's not like he's directing every episode. He's overseeing that show as an executive would, but he's also overseeing it as a creative, as the chief creative architect, the way that any good executive producer or showrunner runs a show. And he's working in the Star Wars universe, I would imagine, after leaving the MCU and giving the world, Iron Man and really, really kicking off the MCU. That what he's done is he's solidified his power base, so now he can make anything he wants. And I would assume that if we don't see Jon Favreau direct a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars trilogy, that would be a tragedy, I think. And then he's going to parlay that and use it to propel himself for if he's got 25 more years of movie making. I think we're going to see a lot of movies that and a lot of projects that he's responsible for, but I don't think he would be satisfied in an executive only position.
You know what? I got the opposite feeling from him watching that docuseries. I feel like I feel like he's ready to move on to being the big picture guy and bringing in, doing what he did with Mandalorian, which is particularly in season 1, because he did direct the season premiere this year, but I mean, he didn't direct last season. He picked his directors. He picked directors and became a big picture person. And I would love to see him take that and apply it to all of Star Wars and all of Lucasfilm. But who knows? Maybe you're right. Maybe he's not done with just that being the hands-on filmmaker guy. We'll have to wait and see. All right, listen, we still got a bunch more questions to go. Let's keep going here. Patrick Conway writes, just watched the trailer to Wild Mountain Time. I haven't seen this trailer yet, but I've been hearing people talking about it. With Emily Blunt, Jamie Dornan, and Chris Walken. Also was filmed in my home country of Ireland. WTF was that? It was so bad and a little offensive. The accents were so bad, but Jamie's was shocking. I have been hearing people talking about this Wild Mountain Time, that even Jamie Dornan, who is Irish, apparently people are appalled at the accent that he uses in the movie. And again, I have not watched this trailer yet. I'm just seeing people, particularly Irish people everywhere, just aghast at this and just hating this trailer. Rob, I haven't seen it yet. Have you had a chance to check it out yet?
No, I have no idea what it even is. It's totally off my radar. So I want to go look. What's it called? Wild Mountain
Mountain Time, but with THY time. THY time. Wild Mountain Time. Apparently, I haven't watched it yet, but I am oddly, morbidly now excited to watch it because I want to hear how bad these accents are.
I just punched it into Google, and The Guardian in the UK did a review of it. It pops up and says Wild Mountain Time trailer blamed for Irish accent emergency.
Again, I got to go see it. Of course, that's where my all-time favorite band comes from, is U2. All right, let's move on here. I will check that out, Patrick. All right, next up. Frustrated on the toilet. Oh, that's never good to hear. Writes, ranking Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings characters. I don't know what those have anything to do with it. Yes.
Can I just stop you for a second?
Yes. Do we have breaking news?
The director of Wild Mountain Time is John Patrick Shanley, who wrote Moonstruck and directed Joe versus the Volcano.
Wow. I love Moonstruck.
Yeah.
But wow.
So yeah, I'm like, look at this going, wait a minute. I don't want to make fun of it. He's a Tony Award winner. He's won a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, this is a guy that knows his stuff. So he won an Academy Award for the best original screenplay for Moonstruck. Just saying. We better not pillory him too much on the show.
Like I said, I love Moonstruck.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought I'd point that out.
If you guys haven't seen Moonstruck, Nicolas Cage, Cher, so fun.
Snap out of it.
All right, next up, Frustrated on Twitter writes, number 1, Han Solo. Number 2, Aragon. Number 3, Spock. Number 4, Picard. Number 5, Darth Vader. Number 6, Gandalf, the Gray and the White. Number 7, Gimli. Number 8, Kirk, OG Kirk. Number 9, McCoy, both. Number 10, Lando. And number 11, Princess Leia, Jedi Bikini. Cottonelle, TP. Oh, TP loves me. There you go. Again, I'm not sure what those 3 things have in common, but... I think at the top of my list would have to be Vader. I mean, Vader would have to be at my number 1. Anyway, Frustrated. I hope you get unfrustrated very quickly. That doesn't sound like any fun. All right, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, lots of moving we've been discussing lately, and I hate to do this, but any word on the rated R Barney coming to us? Something about this movie subverting expectations has me intrigued. Well, first of all, it should be made very, very clear, as much as we've joked about it, this Barney thing that they keep saying is going to subvert audience expectations. Nothing has said anywhere that it's going to be rated R. We joke about it being rated R, but there's been nothing. Just to be clear, we've seen this happen. Sometimes people joke about something so much that other people just assume that's what it is, and right. It's not. And I think it's Daniel Kaluuya who's attached to that. I think that's who it was. And said they're going to subvert all expectations with it. So I don't know, man. But no, I've heard no other updates on it yet, which is not surprising. We've been living in a pandemic. So right now I've heard no other updates on it, Russell. But I am going to definitely keep my ears open because this is a project that intrigues me. It completely does. All right, next up. I love Bare Naked Ladies. If I had $1 million, Rob. Boom, 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 boom. One of the, I just want to pick up my guitar right now and start playing that song.
John,
yeah.
Apparently, the Irish Leprechaun Museum.
Wait, no. Start that sentence over again. The what? This is a real thing?
The National Leprechaun Museum of Ireland.
After
watching the Wild Mountain Time trailer, tweeted out yesterday, even we think this is a bit too much.
All right. Rob is now completely hooked on this story.
I am now so intrigued by Wild Mountain Time. It's become it's going to be my obsession of the day.
I'm going to have to go and watch that trailer. All right, getting back to Bare Naked Ladies, one of my all-time favorite bands. I love Bare Naked Ladies. Anyway, my wife, Anne Murray, and I were at home with the Bare Naked Ladies, drinking a Tim Hortons coffee and eating a French curler. Wearing red and green clothes, we headed to the mall to take in Today's Special. Today's Special. That was a show I was on when I was a kid. And play Mr. Dress Up. That was Canada's version of Mr. Rogers. By the Great Big Sea, which is also another great Canadian band. Every bit of Canadian fun you could put in there, Bare Naked Ladies. I like it. All right. Blind Man Rolling Dice writes, I'm watching Queen's Gambit, and I can tell that it has the feel of the novel it's based on. Lots of subplots, plenty of characters. In terms of compromising as little story as possible, do you think a limited series is the best way to adapt a book? Look, I personally think there is no one answer. Right? Like somebody, Rob, it reminds me, I like in the sense of somebody asking me, is a 90-minute movie best or a 180-minute movie best? Some movies would be absolutely the right time length for them is 90 minutes. Some movies, the right time for them is 120 minutes. I mean, there's no one answer. It really depends on the book. My default is a movie is the best way to do it. I think a movie is the best way to do it. But there are going to be examples where that won't be, it's not a one size fits all. Now, Rob, I've never read Queen's Gambit. I wasn't even aware until last week that it was even a novel. So I had no idea. Rob, I'm gonna go on a limb and guess you've read the novel because you're a big reader.
Yep. And okay. I'm a huge fan of author Walter Tevis.
So let me ask you, was a miniseries approach the right approach for Queen's Gambit?
Well, I think so. And I think that, first of all, I think the Queen's Gambit's my favorite thing I've seen all year so far. And I loved it. It's so beautifully done. But I think, like you said, the material should define what it is. And we've had so many books that they fall short as films because there's just too much book to get into 2 hours. But I think that in the case of this particular material, It started out life as a film. They were going to make it into a film. And I think it could have worked as a movie. But I think the added time really served this particular material quite well. And Scott Frank, who wrote and directed this, also wrote and directed Godless, which, if memory serves, was also a 7-episode Netflix miniseries that I loved. I think what was so great
Godless is great. Godless is great.
Godless is great. And I think you have Scott Frank as a very experienced, an incredible screenwriter, and now an incredible director. This material suited his talents, and he knows how to extend a story through 7 hours and make it palatable. And I think that's really important. I think it's not whether or not you've got a movie or a mini series. It's whether or not the talent that you have doing these things is up to the task. I mean, I think the writer-director, or the writer and then the director together, really define how this material is going to play out. And I think that's what's most important. And Scott Frank knew. I mean, there's some people that say, oh, the middle drags. I didn't find that at all, because it's a period piece. You're dealing with the entire 1960s. You're dealing with basically 14 years in the life of a woman growing up. I loved it all. And I thought that the miniseries form was perfect for this. And, Heath Ledger was going to direct this as his film debut as a movie, but I think it worked great as a miniseries. It really depends. It has to be defined by the talent behind the camera in terms of whether it's 2 hours or not.
All right, well said. All right, next up, we've got Ismail, who writes, one of two. My personal MCU theory, being worthy of Mjolnir isn't just about being a good person, but also a sense of truly needing the hammer. A bit like Harry Potter's Philosopher's Stone. When Thor wasn't king, he didn't truly need the hammer. But once the throne is reclaimed, Thor gets the hammer back. In Ultron, Cap was true in spirit, but didn't really need the hammer yet. He never did, until Thanos. Just my personal take. Love the show and all that you do. It's an interesting point of view on that. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, Ismail, at least my first reaction is I don't agree. I really do think there didn't seem to be, when the All-Father was putting the incantation on Mjolnir, it wasn't complex. It was whoever, possesses this hammer, be they worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. There wasn't subtext. There wasn't an addendum. There wasn't, paragraph 3, part A, and if they really need it. So I don't know that I agree on that, but it is an interesting way to look at it. Rob, what do you think about that little theory?
Well, first of all, I like that idea. I like the idea that to be worthy of the hammer, to be worthy of that power, you have to dig deep. It's not just surface. It has to be the very soul of a person. And I think that's why when Steve Rogers gets the hammer in Endgame, it makes so much sense, because his goodness, his sense of humanity, of justice, it comes from his very core. And it was something we saw in the first Avenger when he threw himself on what he thought was a live grenade to save his fellow soldiers. It goes much deeper, and I believe that. I think that's a really good way to look at it. I like that theory.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we've got an anonymous viewer who writes, Bowen, and now Draco, without you, what do we do? Where do we turn? Draco rising to the stars, Bowen to the stars. Isn't that Sean Connery, Dennis Quaid movie? What's it called again? Dragon.
Yeah, where he plays I want to say it's not Dragon World, it's Dragonheart.
Dragonheart, that's it.
Yeah.
Dragonheart. There we go.
Sean Connery's great as the voice of the dragon.
He really is. He had a great voice. I haven't seen that movie in forever. I should go back and watch that one again sometime.
The world needs more Dennis Quaid, John.
It does.
The world needs more. We need more Dennis Quaid in our lives. He's the best pilot I ever saw.
It's funny because I don't want to get into TMZ nonsense, but it's like he was one half of the great Hollywood couple. It was him and Meg Ryan. And and it's funny because their breakup, which was allegedly because Meg Ryan apparently started fooling around with Russell Crowe on the set of the movie they were doing together.
And who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't?
Maximus Decimus Meridius. Come on.
That's right. But it's funny because after that, I remember that because that killed Meg Ryan's career. Because her whole persona, and I'm not judging Meg Ryan, I'm not judging her at all. I'm just saying that when you look at history, that really is what kind of killed her career, because she was the all-American girl next door.
Oh yeah.
You know, and like, how great is she in You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle and those types of things.
When Harry Met Sally.
And yeah, it was that image of her. And when the public heard you cheated on Dennis Quaid, I mean, it kind of soured that image, and all of a sudden,
with an Australian,
with an Aussie, but I think one of the unfortunate things about that is that Dennis Quaid, who I think is a world-class talent, like I think he's a world-class talent, it seemed to hurt his career as well, even though it was apparently not his fault. I mean, I don't know. I don't get into this TMZ garbage. I don't know, but it is too bad because you're right. The world needs more Dennis Quaid. It's just that simple. It does. All right. Let's get a few more in here while you're with us, Rob. An anonymous viewer writes, "Hey, John, I just saw a trailer for The Wolf of Snow Hollow. I hear this did very well in the festival circuit. It's a horror comedy that mixes Fargo with werewolves. Will it be on streaming? It will be on streaming and DVD this December. Have you heard of this movie or seen it?" Neither. I have not heard or seen it. Rob, have you got any information on The Wolf of Snow Hollow? Are you familiar with this one?
Yeah, actor Robert Forster, who,
really?
When Quentin Tarantino kind of revived his career, it's his last performance. And I think it looks really good, and I've always loved him. He's always been great.
Oh, I've always loved him. He's always been wonderful.
He's in The Black Hole, on Disney on Disney Plus. You can watch him in The Black Hole. But I'm a big fan of his, and the movie looks great. I mean, it looks really good.
All right, let's get into just a couple more quick ones here. Michael Evans writes, "Greetings from the UK, John. My Chevy Chase for Fantastic Beasts 3 suggestion Monday's live chat was a response to a letter about who'd replace Depp's Griswold." Oh, I see what you're saying. "Rather than Grindelwald, hence my Chevy Chase idea. You missed this, so clearing it up now." Well, thank you for clearing it up. I appreciate that. That's very considerate of you to send that in and clear that up. King Beltran writes, "Hey, John, do you think WandaVision episode runtime could go in the direction of 20 to 22-minute episodes? This would allow for about 18 episodes and fall more in line with regular sitcom episode runtime, excluding commercials. Keep up the great work." All right. Rob, this comes from a discussion we were having on the show yesterday about the fact that in an Entertainment Weekly article that just came out about WandaVision, they confirmed a couple of things. One of the coolest things was they actually shot a bunch of the movie when they're kind of doing it in the 60s and 50s sitcom mode. They actually shot those scenes in front of a live studio audience, which is crazy. But the other more relevant to this question piece of information that came out in that article was that the series is going to be 6 hours long. 6 hours long. Now, they didn't say whether that meant 6 one-hour episodes or 8 45 to 50-minute episodes or whatever. The idea of what if they went 20 to 22-minute episodes and made it like 18 episodes long, and that would allow for commercial breaks. First thing you gotta understand, this thing's going on Disney Plus. There are no commercial breaks. So that's not something they need to worry about. I can't, no. Listen, I'm personally cool with the length that, say, Mandalorian episodes are. But you got to understand, Disney Plus got a lot of heat from fans when fans realized how short the episodes of Mandalorian were going to be. They took heat for it. And I think it's perfectly okay. But oh my God, if they came out and made 20-minute episodes, I can't see them doing that, especially after Mandalorian. So I think you're probably going to see an 8-episode. This is just a guess. I don't know this, but I'm guessing an 8-episode season that will divide up the 6 hours. And that's what we'll get. Rob, what do you think? A possibility they could go like truly embrace the sitcomness of this and go 20 to 22-minute episodes?
You know what? I mean, I think there's a lot more to this show than just the sitcom format, but they could, I guess. But I don't know. I don't think that it goes against common streaming, whether it's 8 episodes, 10 episodes, maybe 13 episodes tops. But again, I don't know. I mean, maybe that could work, or would the joke run thin? I mean, if it's not only, we don't know, but it might not only be in the sitcom form. That might only be a part of it. So it'll be interesting to see. It could, if it's all like a weird, wacky sitcom, I'd say, okay, that could be interesting. But I believe that there's probably a lot more to it than just that.
I agree. All right. You know what? This next one's interesting. So I want you in on this question too. This one comes to us from Mike Schwenk, who writes, Happy Veterans Day to all my brothers and sisters. Thank you, John, for creating a supportive community. If you're struggling, please reach out. We care, and absolutely please do. And it's great that those outlets are there for people. If it hasn't been asked yet, what are your favorite war movies? Black Hawk Down and Jarhead for me. When I think of my favorite war movies, war does not make one great. When I think of my favorite war movies, it's hard not to go to like a movie like Saving Private Ryan. One of the reasons I love that movie is because the opening of that movie, like one of the great things about Saving Private Ryan is that Steven Spielberg never tries to glorify war, and the first 20 minutes of that movie, Rob, is basically a letter of war sucks and that the horrors of war. And, it's powerful in that way. And then the story progresses to show the hearts of courage in people in the midst of that hell, doing some remarkable things. And that's why I also loved that Andrew Garfield. Oh gosh, what was the name? The one that Gibson directed. Something Ridge. I can't remember the full name of it, but I loved that one. I thought that one was great too. But I think as a war movie, I probably have to go Saving Private Ryan. Rob, what about you? Do you have one that really has a special place in your heart?
Well, probably Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, but in terms of Veterans Day is a day that we celebrate the service that the men and women in uniform have given throughout the many wars that we fought over the many, many years. And I think that a lot of the problem with movies is they have an anti-war bent to them, and frequently the sacrifices of people and their families are forgotten. And there are movies, like I saw a movie called Coming Home that Jane Fonda is in, and it's about a relationship she has with a returning soldier from Vietnam. And whenever the movie I saw, I was way too young to see it because it's pretty sexually explicit, but it really affected me. And movies like Born on the 4th of July and, our treatment of our veterans. And these are things I think we have to remember on days like today, not just the veterans that are no longer with us, but those that are still here that did such great things for the country, that are in need of our help and our services that we can provide for them. And that's kind of what I think about. I always think about Coming Home on Veterans Day. I don't know, the movie Coming Home.
All right, Rob, thanks so much for being here. I know you got things you got to get off and do today, but thank you so much for being a part of the show today, dude. And in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, and you can always find me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work. I'm dropping a new show, John, this week, a weekly show called Let's Get Physical Media. That's a celebration.
I'm very excited about that, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that one. All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here, and I will talk to you later, man. Have a good one.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right, everybody. That is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. You'll, of course, see him back here again. All right. We still got some time left, so let's get through the rest of the questions here. We got to start with, did we have a bit of a jump? No, there we are. Luis Cortez writes, Part 1, I got to respectfully disagree with those that say Tenet doesn't have heart. When you really understand the movie, everything at the end makes sense. And the last scene, I will argue, is the best scene because we as the audience We as the audience, the protagonist like the character. So when Neil is revealing things to the protagonist, the same reaction he had was the one that I had too. We realize that we didn't really know what was happening, just like the protagonist. Was there a part 3 to that? Yes, there is part 3. Didn't know what was really happening until Neil tells him, you have a future in the past. And of course, he says a lot more, but without putting it to you easy. But if you paid attention to the movie and dialogue, that scene is so powerful and sad. Sad viewing, loved it even more, saw more detail like the backpack. Those who saw it know what that means. Also, maybe the greatest prologue in Nolan history. Anyway, just wanted to give my thoughts on Tenet. Thank you, John, and sorry for writing a lot. No problem, man. Listen, I love people being passionate about the movies they love, man. That's great. I love people being passionate. By the way, thanks to everybody in the live chat who was reminding me the name of the Andrew Garfield movie was Hacksaw Ridge. Hacksaw Ridge. Thank you, everybody in the live chat, for that. It's always good knowing you guys got my back. Listen, I am one that does feel like Tenet lacked a little bit of heart. I still like Tenet. I like Tenet. But listen, there are a lot of movies that, to me, this is the importance of the subjectivity of film. Because there are movies that people, will glance over and say, oh, there's not much to there. But for me, I would see incredible meaning in a lot of the things that just didn't hit other people the way it hit me. And I get passionate about that and I get excited about that. And I love hearing from other movie fans when there's a movie that, maybe I didn't think was great. I didn't think Tenet was great, but I liked it. I did like it, but it's one of my lesser enjoyed Christopher Nolan films. But I love hearing from fans who had a different experience with that art than I did. And when they express why something in that piece of art hit them in a special way and hit them in a way that was different from the way it hit me or other people. And I think it's great. And I love the way you just expressed it, Luis. I really, really do. That, well said, sir. Well said. All right. Next up, R. Lee writes, hey, John, we all know what happened with the Johnny Depp situation, but let's not feel too sorry for him. Multiple sites are reporting Warner Brothers is still on the hook for his full salary, reportedly 8 figures, as he has a pay or play contract. Could you explain that? Well, no, we went into this and I explained it already in the companion video the other day. But basically it's this. A lot of Hollywood contracts are, with real pay or play contracts, you don't even have to start shooting. Like Tim Burton, one of the reasons Superman cost so much is because Tim Burton had one of those contracts. He got paid regardless of whether they made the movie or not. Johnny Depp started work. He had already shot. The moment he shows up on set to shoot, he's owed his money. And a lot of contracts are like that. And as soon as you step onto set, and you show up to work, and they removed, now technically he resigned, but everybody knows they removed him. They fired him. When you get asked to resign, that's them firing you. So, with that being the case, yeah, they still had to pay him. They still had to pay him, which is good because he's going to need that money for his legal bills, apparently. And it also tells you how much conviction Warner Brothers felt about it, that they felt, look, if we get rid of Johnny Depp, we still got to pay him his $10 million. And to them, it was like, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it to us to pay him the $10 million that we owe him, or like 9.7, whatever it was. It's worth the $10 million to us to part ways with him. That says something. That unfortunately says something, that they were so convinced that it was not good for them to work with him anymore that they were willing to eat that $10 million. And now they're going to have to pay somebody else, like a Mads Mikkelsen. And guess what? He ain't free. I don't think Mads Mikkelsen's going to be commanding $10 million, but it's probably going to be 6 or 7 or 8. And it was to them, it was like, it is worth $10 million to us to not work with Johnny Depp anymore. That's chilling. But yeah, he was still owed that money. Now, if Johnny Depp had refused to show up on set, if Johnny Depp has said, no, I don't feel like showing up on set and working and recording my role, well, then he wouldn't have gotten his money. But he did. He showed up. He gets paid. He gets paid. And so, there's really nothing unusual about it, to be honest with you. Like, that's really not unusual. That's not an uncommon, not normal, but not uncommon form of contract. So, yes, he still got his money for it. All right. Next up is, let's see, Stubble McShave, who writes, I'm not that into reaction videos on YouTube. They often seem fake and exaggerated, but the videos of 35 to 40-year-old people from Africa who react to We Are the World, and in large part, we saved from starvation because of they raised money from donations are impactful. I've never seen those. Of course, some people may be too young to remember, but back in the day, like when there was like really the Ethiopian crisis and stuff like that, a lot of big music stars in the UK, in Canada, and the US made their own big songs where they got like 40 of the biggest rock stars in the UK together to make a song, and like 40 of the biggest pop stars and music stars in the US to make a song, and like all the big Canadian music stars got together and made a song. And they did that to raise money for it. So I've never seen reaction videos to that. But now you've totally turned me. Now I got to go see it. Now I've got to go and look these up because that's probably going to make my eyes water. But I'm going to have to go and watch that. All right, next up. Luke1234 writes, the stronger someone is connected to the Force, the stronger their Force powers. But do they have unlimited power, or does using Force powers drain their stamina? I don't know. It's never been really made clear, I think, at least in the movies. Now, look, you look at two different things. Luke, when he was trying to raise the X-Wing out of the swamp, it taxed him. Like, it just totally and completely taxed him, right? Whereas Yoda was like, lifted it out of the water, put it down. Now, granted, after he put the X-Wing down, he did take one deep breath. Does that mean it was actually physically taxing on him? I don't know. But then you fast forward to Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker, or not Rise of Skywalker, Star Wars, The Last Jedi. Luke does a Force trick that is so advanced, like the Force projection, that is so advanced, and it was over such a great distance that ultimately it killed him doing it. So I don't know. It's one that for Star Wars fans to debate. It's a good question, Luke, but it's one for Star Wars fans to debate. All right, James Germain writes, hey, John, 2 questions for you and Aaron. Well, Aaron's not here today. She'll be here tomorrow. 2 questions for you and Aaron. 1, do you think Swamp Thing will get a second season since it's moved to CW? 2, Aaron, did you catch the last episode of The Mandalorian? I believe it was tailored just for you. Pitter patter, John. No, everybody warned, including me. I warned Aaron immediately. Do not watch the second episode of Mandalorian. For those of you who don't know, Aaron has a crippling, paralyzing fear of spiders. Like no joke, like paralyzing fear of spiders. So it's like, I told her right away, and then she texted me back. She goes, I've been warned. Everybody, all the viewers of the John Campea Show have been texting or have been tweeting me to let me know not to watch it. So no, she's not watched that. No, I don't know that they're not going to do a season 2 of Swamp Thing. I suspect they're not going to do a season 2 of Swamp Thing. Look, CW putting Swamp Thing on their network was a brilliant move because 1, they're lacking content right now because of how long production was shut down because of the pandemic, right? 2, most people have not seen Swamp Thing because not a lot of people had the DC streaming service, right? So CW, instead of producing something when they needed something to be some fresh content. So they were able to go to DC, the library, take Swamp Thing, which almost nobody has seen. So it's brand new to most people, and it's already made and it's already done. And boop, pop it on CW. Now, is there a chance that it could become so popular on CW that maybe CW puts in an order for another season? That's possible, but I don't think that's the plan right now. It can become that, but I don't think that's the plan right now. All right. Last question of the day, guys. Gay3131 writes, Drunk with Mads Mikkelsen is the best movie of the year for me. I have not seen that. Drunk with Mads Mikkelsen. I have not seen that, but now I'm going to have to go and look it up at some point. And with that, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. And thank you to all of you guys who sent in those live questions for two reasons. Number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you guys very much for that. Don't forget, the John Campea Show will be back again tomorrow. It is No Pants Thursday, so it's going to be me and Aaron Cummings. Hopefully you guys will join us for that. Guys, make sure to do the 4 important things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.